Hello, and welcome to another in the series of favourite 5 videos, which is where I choose 5 of my favourite colours from any one media and then do some swatching and a little sketch just to show you why I love them. My name is Debbie and I'm a mixed media artist. I live in Germany and yeah, so much inspiration around me where I live here in the country. So hopefully I can show you some of that. If you're new here, welcome. If you're watching for a second, third, or hopefully fourth time, welcome back. Your support means the world to me. Yes, so today it's all about Derwent Lightfast, and as I said, this is a series, so I've got lots of other ones that I've already done here, and we've done Ecoline brush markers, we've done luminance coloured pencils, we have done gouache, and we have done Inktense. And this week, brand new page, brand new week, little sketch for you here. I'm going to show you how I use Derwent Lightfast pencils. Now, Derwent make some of the best pencils in the world. There's no getting away from that. Not cheap, worthwhile, worth the spend. And Derwent Lightfast in particular is a favourite of mine because I love muted colours, and I love the fact that these they match the muted colour palette that I love, but they also match the reality of what I see around me in the countryside. And you know, I can usually look at something and find a colour that I want to use for it in the range. So really worthwhile. And my favourites, as you can see here, I've used a few of these quite often. I love Dark Honey, this beautiful sort of almost a raw sienna colour. I believe there's a raw sienna in the range as well, but this is a favourite. Natural Brown, love a natural brown, it's so useful for so many things. Yellow Ochre, super great with greens to lighten them. I try to never lighten a green with white because you can make it very chalky, and unfortunately that's so often the case. However, because green is made up from blue and yellow, if you use a blue like an indigo, you can darken it, and if you use a yellow like a yellow ochre, you can lighten it and keep the fresh green look. And it's quite important depending on what you're trying to achieve. So yellow ochre is a really good option for doing that. Light aqua, love this light aqua for doing skies. As you can see, some of these have been replaced, to be fair, which is why some of them are quite long and new looking. This one's light aqua, great for water, great for skies, great for things like that. Then I love forest. Forest is a green, but it can also be used as a brown and a grey, and it's just fabulous for all sorts of things like that. My honourable mention this week, because you will know if you've watched a few in this series that I don't always make it to 5 is just too difficult. I should have said 10, but we'd be here all week. So 5 plus an honourable mention is the absolute best I can do. My honourable mention this week is Mars Black. And why I like Mars Black is because it can be black, brown, or purple. I shall reveal that when we get to it, but it's got so many colours in the mix, and depending on what you do with it, for example, if I burnish this with white, you'll see distinct purple tones. So this honourable mention it's almost 3 pencils in one, depending on how you use it. So let's get to the swatch bit. Start with Natural Brown. As you would expect, a nice brown for all reasons and all seasons. Love that. It's yeah, you get a really nice pigment payoff with these pencils, and of course, being Lightfast, they have got the most excellent Lightfast rating that they can possibly achieve as far as I'm aware. Yellow Ochre, also nice, really nice muted earth tones, just what I need to create my art. Dark Honey, good for glazing and good for warming areas up, that sort of thing. Light aqua, like I said, skies and water, certain weather anyway, works well with grey and it works well with white. Then forest, this is a really deep green. It is definitely a green, but sometimes it can look brown or even grey, so that's also worthwhile. Love that one. And my honourable mention, which I'm going to give a bit more in the spotlight than just a swatch, as you can see, it's a dark, dark brown. And that's always a valuable thing to have. Now, be aware that when say you're sketching a tree, trees are not brown. They're only brown when we're in primary school and we've got a limited amount of crayons. They're not really brown. They can be shades of brown. They can be hints of brown, but they're not the sort of brown that children reach for. If I can just grab an example. Oh, good grief. Yeah, if you saw my desk, you'd realise why that was difficult. Okay, this one will do. This one's raisin, but that's the sort of brown that we think trees are when we're young. When we get older, we realise trees are actually a grey brown, and Mars Black is a really good one to use for that, and even forest, which is actually a green, and I keep calling it forest green in my videos. It's not forest green, it's just forest. Either of those are really good for tree bark, and getting those deep shadows and giving the tree some shape, really, really important. Now, as I said, I would show you with this Mars Black here. For example, if I burnish that with white, it magically reveals its purple tones, which I just love. I think that's really quite useful in certain circumstances too. And yeah, let's have a look. That was Chinese white from the Derwent drawing range, which is not what we're doing today, but because I'm a mixed media artist, I use all sorts. Wheat is another one. So to burnish with that, you would get a different colour of grey, or purple, sorry. So you can see there, I'm hoping you can see there, quite distinct purple tones. And that's really quite nice because, like I said, there's another pencil hiding in that one. So if you're painting outdoors and you want to have only a limited colour palette, brilliant. Include a Mars Black, brilliant. Okay. Like I said, I'm a mixed media artist, so let us do a sketch and I will show you what I might do with these. The first thing is I would use my incredibly messy gouache palette, which I just put, this is a watercolour palette. I put my gouache colours in here and they dry out, so I re-wet them. Then they dry out again and I re-wet them again, and this keeps on going. This dance keeps going until they get emptied, and then I fill them up again. But it's brilliant. I've been using this now for 5 years, this particular one, and other incantations before it. But yes, so because I'm a mixed media artist, I don't just go straight in with coloured pencil. And when I use my gouache, I do it quite different to a lot of people. I like a nice sort of scrubby, okay, people might say dirty sort of palette. Muddy could even be used. I don't wash my brush. I want these muddy colours. So sometimes I will wash my brush, but as a rule, I just keep going until I've got all the colours in where I'd like them to be, and keep plenty of water, just like that. We used to live in Norfolk, so what I'm doing today is a little bit of a Norfolk. That's Norfolk in east of England, for those of you elsewhere, because I suspect that there'll be the odd Norfolk in other countries. So yeah, we have Norfolk in the east of England, East Anglia, and we lived there for quite some time. And one of the features of Norfolk are the Broads, which are waterways, and they're just gorgeous. Right, just give that a small wash. It's the disappointing thing with gouache is I always have lovely clean water, and one wash and it's all over. Okay, just going to go in with a slightly lighter green there and liven that up a bit of a brighter colour, but not too much. Okay, the brush I'm using is a number 12, or 12 is number 12 DecoArt Traditions Dome Blender, and it's a round brush. I don't have to worry about the tip staying nice. I can just keep going, you know, and scrubbing. I'll show you if I add some clouds here, which often happen. I'm pushing and doing things with the brush that I absolutely would not get away with if I was using a beautiful round brush. If I can just grab one here. This one, for example, this is a regular Da Vinci round brush. I'd have to be careful because if you start scrubbing with them, you will wreck the tip, and I certainly don't want to do that. Whereas this one, I don't have to worry. A bit more variation in that sky. Yeah, so that's how I would use the gouache substrate. Fairly light, fairly watery. That's that. Get rid of those. Now what I would do is I would dry this completely. I'm using my Ranger Heat-It craft tool because I also make cards, but a hairdryer will do the job, or a sunny window, or some time. Like you might get this down and then leave it and come back and sort of work on it a little bit later. This picture is very much in my mind at the moment, as in my memory. It's almost certainly not a real place. I always do the back as well because of the water, the paint will soak into the paper a little bit and it's not going to be quite dry. So when it feels warm or room temperature, it's dry. If it's got cool spots on it, it means it's not dry. And that has an impact on the way we use coloured pencils over the top. And if we go back here just a little bit, this is the gouache week, but me being me, I couldn't leave it at gouache, so coloured pencils over the top and things like that, and a few other markers and what have you. But this won't work in this way if the underlayer is wet, so it has to be quite dry. Then I would look with my forest green to deepening up some of these colours in the tree line at the back here. Not too much because we don't want to bring them forward, and any details you add will bring them forward a bit. So just some little bit of lighter colour, or darker colour should I say. And for this I'm using forest. And then I would lighten the top with yellow ochre. And I go just over the top of the gouache, meaning onto the sky here, so over the edge a little bit, because what that does is gives the impression that those trees are a bit taller and the light is shining through them. So you can see the distinct canopy, but you can also see the light shining through at the top. And you can bring your yellow ochre down the bottom here a bit and burnish some of the dark green, which knocks back the colour a bit if you want it to be a little bit lighter. You can also come onto this foreground here. Now be aware that when you do things like this with coloured pencil, the gouache has provided an extra bit of tooth on top of the natural tooth of the paper. But if you go too much with colour pencil, you will flatten it down again. And the colour pencil will kind of stick to itself. So here where I've burnished, I've gone green and then colour pencil over the top, and that's kind of stuck to itself. But what it's actually doing is grabbing the gaps in between. So see where I've made that a little bit grainy here? It'll actually grab onto the graininess, because what you can see through the graininess is the colour underneath that was gouache. So the coloured pencil prefers to stick to that. So if I do too much with this colour, I'll create a bit of a resist and the next colour won't go over it quite as well saturated. If that doesn't make sense, just let me know in the comments and I shall do my absolute best to improve that explanation. Yeah, just bit here. Actually, before we do, I prefer to work from the back of a picture to the front. So what I would do now, even though this is a grey sky, I don't want it flat grey like a pile of bath towels. I want to add some colour to kind of lighten it. I want it light, but I don't want bright colours. A little bit of blue coming through. And if you don't want it grainy, press harder, go over the top more, and that will increase that. Any areas that are white, leave them white. Don't sort of feel the need to fill absolutely every gap. Back here with the dark, and that was light aqua, with dark honey, a little bit on the horizon here, just to give it some interest. You might increase, do something that's a different colour of foliage. just to give it a bit of background there. And again with forest. What I do on this side of the picture, I will almost always do elsewhere, so that it sort of blends in quite nicely. Then with the dark honey as well, we've done some yellow ochre here and a little bit of natural brown. But what I really want is this, just some texture. Yeah, there's a bit of a sand bank. And I might go in again with natural brown here. It's most unlike me to use such a limited colour palette. Normally I like to have all the colours because I want to look at what's in front of me and see things and say, right, that's that colour. So I want to use that colour. With this, I've got to use the nearest I've got for what I'm thinking. There's a little bit of darker there next to the water. Natural brown is good for that. And also here. And here we've got another sort of tree line happening a little bit. So I might, towards the bottom of those, I might go in with some forest, trying not to obliterate the gouache completely, but if it's not perfectly what I want, then it goes. Might put some textures in here. Same pencil, just to give us a couple of sort of trunks and twiggy bits. And the beauty of doing this with the same pencil is if you don't like what you've done, you can go over the top of it. And again, where there's a bit of highlight, just a little bit of yellow ochre. A little bit more forest green. I'm using this quite on the side now. And then blending it down into the foreground, and dark honey as well. Make all of that fit together quite nicely. And maybe some Mars black to increase some of my trunks here and twiggy trees, sort of like these low growing trees that you often get beside waterways. Whatever the year, you'll always see some sort of trunks. And this is light aqua because I want to knock the green back a little bit, and remembering that green and yellow make blue and yellow make green. This will do the trick. While we've got that, let's have a look at here. The water will reflect whatever's in the sky. So we've got a bit of this up here. Let's put some in the water as well. And for that, we need a little bit of movement in that water. I'm using forest because I don't have the usual go-to indigo. So it's actually green. And then we can go over the top with aqua and burnish that in a little bit. Really, really odd not having white as well. I want white and I haven't got it, and I'm not letting myself have it. This is a real challenge I've set myself. Some Mars black and see what that looks like, because all of these colours occur both in the landscape and the water. We've got some here that we can put together, being aware that when I burnish this with aqua, I will get a purple version. So that's kind of a dark blue. That'll do. apologies for twisting that. It's I tend to move my page around quite a bit. This takes as long as it takes, unfortunately. But it's not really worth speeding up because it's only a small amount on a quick sort of sketch. So what I'm doing here is just creating a little bit of movement. And these have to be horizontal, of course, because that's how it works. You could make that a little bit deeper there and then knock it back with the aqua. And I like doing this because it pushes it down and you can feel it moving the colour around, which is exactly what I want here. And back here as well, let's just put a little bit of colour in, just into the water. This is forest. So now the idea is, if this is a little bit grainy, so I'm using my yellow ochre to flatten the tooth down and make it less grainy, because I don't really want that graininess. We're going to see some of that reflected in the water too. So if it's up here, it'll be reflected in the water. Now, generally with water reflections, they are going to be slightly darker than what you can see on the land. But when it's a sketch like this, you can get away with murder. Mars black again, because just need to increase some of the drama. This is sort of the closest area. That's a bit weird because I can see aqua in there. I know I put it there, but it's not necessarily what I want. This is sort of where I would sit back and have a look at the picture and see what needs doing, what needs altering. I'm assuming that the sun comes in from the left top, which is the usual in my pictures. That's my favourite direction. All right, burnish this. So therefore we're going to have a bit of shadow under here. And normally I would be reaching for something like my Albrecht Dürer watercolour markers. This one's Warm Grey 3. They are by Faber-Castell. And fill in some of these gaps with that and create some shadows at the same time. As you can see, it makes it slightly more homogeneous by doing that and extending those down there. You can also extend some here into the water. This is not cheating. I know I said 5, but it's all about this, so I'm defending this to the death because I'm a mixed media artist. This is sort of how it works and what it looks like to use mixed media. So this is a particularly good addition to the kit because, as you can see now, rather than these disparate elements that are all over the place, the grey over the top glazes this and brings it all together quite nicely. You can add extra texture with it. I don't want to touch the sky. Happy with the sky. Some of these other places, just a little bit, quite a lot really, of grey, but yeah, move it with your finger. But as you can see, whereas we had here before a whole lot of lines that weren't sort of together, the grey makes them come together quite nicely. Right, so to recap, we've got coloured pencils in this. We've got a gouache to begin with, then the coloured pencils that go with it, and a Faber-Castell Albrecht Dürer watercolour marker. You could use any one at all. I also have Ecoline ones. As long as it's a warm grey, it will bring it together quite nicely. And you could use Tombows, you could use Lyra, Carine markers, anything at all that you quite like, that you've got and that you've got available to you, because like I said, I'm coming to you today from Germany, and we've got, most of these things are actually made in, these are not, these are British. A lot of these things are actually made in Germany, so they're quite easy to come by, but other things will work as well. But the main thing is to get something that blends the colours together and makes them work. Right, well, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Any questions, pop them into the comments below. Obviously, if you like my style of art and would like to learn more about mixed media artwork that you've seen here, do consider joining my Patreon, where I do full-length videos, a lot slower than this and with proper commentary, everything you need to know to actually do this sort of thing. But yeah, so do consider that, because it's a lot of fun, and I post weekly on there too, so there's a hell of a lot of content, all sorts of things on there. Other than that, I shall see you next week, and we will do another favourite 5, or maybe something else, depends what occurs to me during the week. I think I'd like to do a book review at some point as well. So yeah, I will see you then, and like I said, any comments at all, or any don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you like what you're seeing, and if you have any questions, let me know. Bye until next week. Bye.